Hello world, it's Berto Prey 5, Qapla, and welcome to my review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, Season 1, Episode 6, Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach. And man, do I wish I could be lifted up just a little bit to where the suffering could not reach me. Watching Star Trek Strange New Worlds, I would say it's probably only 6 to 12 inches off the ground is all I need. For some reason, on this show that is episodic track, it again opens with a previously on. They decide they need to tell us what happened last time. Obviously, it's not just last time, it's a combination over the first 5 episodes now. And the first thing, the most important thing they want to tell us is that Dr. Mbenga is that he brings his daughter to work every day. She is stuck in the transporter buffer. And Captain does his log. Captain Pike actually does his own log, which is weird for this show. He says that he's been at this minor system at the edge of the known solar, at the edge of known space, the Majalis system. I don't know if that's Michelle as in Michelle Barrett Roddenberry, but that's what I think of when I hear the name Michelle. Perhaps they're giving a one-off to the original number 1, Michelle Barrett Roddenberry, or perhaps it's just something that sounds the same in my mind. Anyway, Cadet Uhura gets on the same elevator / turbo lift with Pike, and Pike says, "Oh, you're on rotation with Noonien-Singh is teaching her about Cadet Uhura about security." And just as they get on the bridge, Pike gives I remember what lesson 7 is. She's like, "What's lesson 7?" And Pike says, "Well, you're not going to get it from me," and does his finger and put in front of his mouth. Like, nope, he's not going to tell her any secrets. Anyway, just as they got to the bridge, there's 2 shuttles / cruisers fighting right in front of the Enterprise. And Pike is saying, because the alien vessel appealed to us for help, he's obliged by his conscience and Federation law to intervene. And apparently the ship that shot at the Enterprise is way underpowered. They appear to be making an attack run, but they have no real weapons. Their weapons at full strength only took 2% out of their shields. So La'an, rather than firing the weapons herself, orders Cadet Uhura to fire the weapons, and Uhura overfires and really destroys the ship, and it goes crashing. It goes crashing to the planet, and Pike says, "Well, they fired 3 times on a Starfleet ship. If it wasn't their fault, it is now." Now, both Pike and number 1 leave the bridge so that they can go down to the transporter room to meet so-called their guests. And lo and behold, the woman turns his face and she's like, "Lieutenant Pike." And he says, "Algora," or Alora, not Algora, Alora. So number 1 is like, "So you know her, or should I call you Lieutenant?" Like, is that a joke? It's not a very good joke. But so Now not number one, Jesus Christ. Now Captain Pike is giving these are the voyages of Starship Enterprise speech. It's the opening crawl, the opening of the episode, to seek out new life and new civilization. So basically we have the setup here that Pike knows this woman. Number one, has no idea who she is, but she's interested in seeing that Pike knows who she is. I guess we'll find some more info on this. It's a backstory that happens often enough in Trek, where the captain's familiar with somebody, but not the rest of the crew, not so much. I'm sure we'll get filled in with the relevant info. Obviously, unlike Star Trek 2009, most of the time the crew does not grow up together, right? It's different crews are, different crews at different parts of your life. It's not that all the crew starts on the mission together like they do in Star Trek 2009, and then they all, quote unquote, grow up together. Like, no, that's not how it works. Anyway, that's not how any of this works. So there's a kid, a man, and a woman. So it's the woman tells that Captain Pike rescued her from a different shuttle, and number one says, "Seems like you don't have good luck with shuttles," and she says, "Oh, I have good luck with shuttles. It depends how you look at it." Anyway, the woman says to Captain Pike that his uniform is very yellow. And he's like, "It's actually yellow. It's actually gold because he's captain." So she's like, "Oh, Captain Pike, okay, if you say so." And it's like, "This is my number one, Lieutenant Commander Una-Chin Riley." So the guy says, "I must insist you take me to your medical bay." Anyway, he says, "Are you the boy's father?" And the guy looks at him and says, "Strictly in the biological sense." So there's something more to say there. So the chief, the transporter chief, is going to take the kid to med bay, and we see Dr. Mbenga is there talking to his daughter, who is supposed to be in the transporter buffer. And he's like, "Hey, honey, you know how I've been keeping you packed in the transporter buffer?" She says, "Yes." He's like, "Well, I can't keep you out a lot, and sometimes it's hard to keep track of the details." So now the kid is very smart. It's like, "You mean that I'm out here when you don't notice? How long have I been out?" She's like, "When am I going to be going back?" And all of a sudden she rematerializes and she's gone. She's back in the buffer. He's got this time to the second so that he doesn't have to ever answer her questions. Anyway, Nurse Chapel happens to knock on the door just as the kid beams away, and he's like, "Hey, we've got people who need help here." Okay. So we're told now that this kid is a kid chosen by lottery at birth. Lottery at birth. Everybody on, I think the planet is Nasalis. Everybody on Nasalis is his family. So he's like, "What were you doing on that moon?" She's like, "This moon has an ancient retreat for the first servant studies. They were returning to Majalis when the ship attacked them, and they're demanding that they surrender the child. Nobody knows. Nobody knows who it was, but she's like, the moon is next door planet with a world that has coexisted peacefully for thousands of years. She doesn't know why. They've coexisted peacefully for such a long time. If outsiders know about this, then they also know that Majalis would pay anything for the safe return of the child. So she wants to, she says no investigation is no necessary, just return us to Majalis. And she says, Captain Pike, my people didn't join the Federation. Yeah. Please just let us go. Let us handle this. And he's like, sorry, Starfleet regulations require them to investigate with or without their cooperation. So she says, well, then with or without your cooperation, if you insist, then I insist in being part of this. And of course, Pike could say, whatever, we're dropping you off on the planet, goodbye. But for some reason, he wants to see what she's up to. So the kid's got minor blood flow reduction to the head, and Dr. Vega says that's consistent with a head injury, and he tells the kid not to block the floor with his head next time. Now we got a little interesting scene where the doctor calls Dr. Mbenga's, actually Nurse Chapel's electronic scalpel a butcher tool, and he wanted to check that it's quantum whatever was functioning, and he says quantum bioimplants. That didn't show up on her scan, and Dr. Mbenga says this is a state-of-the-art medical facility, and he's like, maybe for you, and he's like, but for me, our medicine starts on the subatomic level. Now that makes no sense. You don't want subatomic medicine. So he was a doctor until he became a father of the first servant, and the kid's pretty smart. And he's saying what this is. So it's a case of where the kid is smarter than every adult in the room. They like to keep him for observation. So now Dr. Mbenga, it says, in theory, your angular whatever could realign peptides of protein. So yes, this could considerably, this could cure his daughter. They have a saying, may the tree of sacrifice lift them higher than where any disease can reach. He says, we have no diseases on my planet. And Dr. Mbenga is very interested in their medicine and their medical tech. This might be it. This might be the cure for his daughter. Anyway, back on the planet, the planet that the ship crashed onto, La'an and Cadet Uhura, with no medical gear, with no, they don't even seem to be wearing a helmet. I suppose there could have been an oxygen. This is a moon. This is a moon. That the moon might have a Class M or atmosphere or a Class L atmosphere. So they didn't need to have it doesn't make any sense how they don't need to have any type of air, oxygen, headgear. They cut into the ship and they knocked the door in, and they walked into the ship with an unknown atmosphere on board. And then she starts yelling at Uhura because Uhura dared touch the controls. She's like, if this was a Klingon ship, they're known to they're known to set the controls to overload, which I think was a takeaway from Star Trek, uh, the movie two, not two, three. He's like, the computer is the only thing speaking. What's it saying? 5, 4, 3. Get out! Get out of there! Get out of there! And then the Klingons look at each other, and the ship blows up, and Bones is on the surface, and he's like, my God, Bones, what have I done? He's like, what you've always done, Jim. You've turned certain death into a fighting chance to live. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm going off on better track. Anyway, what's going on in Strange New Worlds is that the woman who's in charge of everything has figured out that one of the guards may have switched sides, because Spock was on the ship and he found some alien technology on the floor, but then the woman bent down and she found a coin which is given to all of the guards. Have a special coin, and for some reason one of the guards decided to smash his coin and leave it in the wreckage. So that lets the woman know that one of the guards is probably changed. One of the guards has decided to become the enemy, and she gives them a place to figure out who was guilty in trying to steal the child. Now we've got the triumphant Pike, along with the woman and the woman's secretary, walking down what appears to be government offices. And the secretary says she has quite a schedule. Actually, Pike says she has quite a schedule. So the woman's like, we have to bring in the guards. We have something off, not planned. Pike says, you ready to shake the tree and see what flies off? And she's like, ready as ever. And Pike pulls open his phaser. Anyway, Spock brings what he picked up off the floor over to the kid's father, aka the kid's guard. He's both the guardian of the kid and the father of the kid, and also not either, because the kid belongs to everybody. So it's a kind of neural dampener designed to reduce the brain's electrical, I don't know what. He says he's never seen this. He says, based on it, the attackers may have tried to use it on the boy. Anyway, the kid sits up and says, may I see it? And the father says, may I see it? And the father says, I'd rather you didn't. So the kid asks Spock a science question, but you must be science officer. And he's like, so you must know what the speed is of a subspace signal. He's like, he believes it's 56,000 times the speed of light. He's like, no wonder why you've got to use subspace buoys, because 56,000 times the speed of light is way too slow to have conversations across the galaxy. He bets he could create his own subspace signal by rewiring a biobed, and Spock is like, I'm sure Dr. Mbenga would object. He says, the boy needs his rest. He has a big day tomorrow. So Spock leaves, and now we hear the woman addressing the guards who all have these coins. She asks that everybody on staff renew their vows. And it's both men and women, because of course it is. When you uphold your covenant to Majalis and faithfully defend the life of the servant. We have men and women of all colors. Oh, and we have a bald guy, a white bald guy with a beard. He says, "What happened to your coin, Baldy?" He's like, "It was an accident." And she looks at Pike from behind, and she knows, and he looks at Pike, and he knows what's coming, and he runs, and he fires his staff weapon like Teal'c from Stargate, and his staff weapon, I believe, two shots, it seems to vaporize. It's even better than Teal'c. 2 shots vaporizes the enemy. So Pike, meanwhile, like 8 of their elitist guards are all following this guy. Nobody can stop him. He takes everyone out except Pike and the lady, who she's like, "No, come this way." She's got a shortcut. And of course, it's enough to put Pike directly in his path, because she knew exactly where he was going. This whole big fight, this is the fountain fight. The fight at the fountain, and Pike says it's not on stun. And he aims the phaser at the guy, and then the woman puts herself in front of Pike's phaser and says, "We just want to talk. Why were you on that ship?" He says, "To fulfill my oath." So then he says, "Long live the first servant," and he almost kills the woman. He pulls a knife, but the woman is, of course, far more powerful than any man, and she takes the knife out of his hands, plunges it into his chest, and throws him on the ground. So she's safe. Cadet Uhura is in the mess hall, says that, "Oh, some guy comes by and says you're allowed to eat. You're allowed a full hour." And he's like, "Oh, that's right. You're under today, Noonien-Singh or whatever." He's like, "Now I know why you're eating so fast." And Nal comes in. He's like, "You tell her," and she's like, "You can tell me yourself." And I'm like, "Oh shit, he had to get out," because of course everybody's afraid of her. So Lon has a whole bunch of data tablets, data, I don't know, data tapes. She has a whole bunch of data tapes that she needs translated. So she gives them to Uhura, and Uhura's like, "You want me to translate all of these?" She's like, "Yep, I do." And it's a good thing I didn't, she says something like she didn't make them official, because if she made it official, it would take way too long to get it translated. So there's no record of anyone having these. So this is, again, everything we don't want to see. We don't want to see, as a matter of fact, that the Federation, that the people on the ship don't follow protocol. They just don't do it. They refuse. It's like, I had some respect for some of these characters, but as much as I wanted to respect them, they really just go so hard. They go so hard to make me not want to respect anything they're about. So why would I care about this woman if she makes it a matter of fact that everything she does is illegal? Everything she does is illegal. She didn't know that she needed to do it this way. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. She's like, yeah, she was lucky. She said, she's lucky she didn't log this stuff, or else there would never be time for Uhura to get what she needs done. It's bullshit, and it annoys the crap out of me. So now we see Pike and the Sovereign Lady, the mother of the Sovereign. They're kissing, and they're like, okay. So they had obviously a bigger relationship than we thought. They're laughing now. Good for them, I guess. Pike has a confession to make. Of course he does. He may have been hitting on her 10 years ago. She's like, oh, you definitely were. I was waiting for the actual reason they met again. I was like, they would surely, they were going to tell us what the reason is they met again. But guess what? I don't believe there is one. I've watched this episode several times now, mostly because I kept falling asleep. So it's possible I missed this, but I swear that there is no actual reason given for why they met again. I honestly believe, we're supposed to believe, it's just the way the story plays out. And if that's what it is, then that is awful. Okay, that is awful. Because there is no, I mean, that's like the chances of you going to a random town and then 30 years later going to some other town and finding somebody you met at a different town. And like, wow, that's pretty interesting. But that doesn't really happen. And this is a much bigger universe than just Earth. So they talked about how you don't find, you very rarely do you get a glimpse of your future. And he's like, actually, I did get a glimpse of my future. It sucks. I'm going to die in 10 years. She's like, wow, that sucks because we have great health care. You could stay here with us and you would have awesome health care. And he's like, oh, really? That might help. She's like, oh, but you would have to be one of us. We don't give that health care out to everybody. You'd have to be one of us. You'd have to give up your Earth, your Starfleet career. You'd have to move in and basically be my pet. And he's like, yeah, I'm not as interested in doing that. Which makes no sense. Anyway, Cadet Uhura did a whole bunch of work on those pads, and she's like, I did a lot of work, and La'an says we should take this to the captain, and Cadet says, okay, let me know what he says, and La'an says, no, this is your work. You've got to bring it to the captain. And Uhura is actually happy to bring it to the captain. Anyway, Dr. Mbenga goes into sick bay, and the guy's asleep, and he hears laughing from his office, and his daughter is playing with the kid. And he said, look what he made. And he says, sorry, I hope you're not mad, says the kid. The grid was just made out of noble gases. He figured they'd be safe since they're inert gases. Anyway, he's not mad at the kid. He's mad at his daughter. He says, you shouldn't be up. Back into the transporter buffer you go. She was like, I was having fun, Daddy. And he looks at the kid. How did you know she was hidden in the transporter buffer? He says, well, I was pretended to be asleep. I heard you talk about her. And when he checked all the other places in sickbay, that was the only place left she could be. So She's like, do I have to go, Daddy? Yeah, you have to go. Oh. Dr. Mbenga puts his daughter back in sick bay into the transporter, and the little kid, the little boy, says he's sorry, he didn't mean to get her in trouble. He said, Dr. Mbenga says you can't tell anyone about her. And he says, why not? The father comes in. He said he heard noises. So the kid stays true to his word and doesn't talk about the kid that's in stasis. Not that it would matter to this guy. I don't really see what the problem is. So they have Captain Pike. They want to talk to him without Alora being there. They match the language spoken with the kidnappers to a non-Federation colony, an L-class planet, a couple of light years away. That doesn't make any sense that here's the surprising part, says Uhura. This has common dialect with the language spoken. This has to be an offshoot off Majalis. Why would anyone leave? He's like, why would anyone, why are Majalans aren't trusting of outsiders? That was the problem. If that accident had never happened, he's not sure that there would be some reason. They're going back to the planet, says Dr. Mbenga. The other people woke up. He says, we agreed this first servant was safer here. And he says, I don't believe you're truly capable of keeping him safe. Anyway, Transporter Chief Kyle has beamed him off. And he's like, well, who gave him permission to beam him off? And Kyle's like, no, it wasn't me, Captain. I didn't beam him. Somebody attempted to beam him. Somebody else beamed them. And they're like, oh, it's the transport cruiser. Somebody tried beaming him off. Anyway, they beamed the father back, and the kid is missing. The kid is missing. They don't know where he is. Have they tried hailing him? And he says several times. Now they have to remind him the Enterprise is bigger. So the beam, what's that beam? Not the transporter beam. The beam that holds ships. That beam is holding the shuttle, the cruiser, from going. It's holding it in place. Anyway, the ship was put their engines up so high, it exploded. The kid is dead. The kid was aboard that ship, and now he's dead. Oh my God. This is a tragedy beyond tragedies. Oh, wait, you mean he's not dead? No. He said, how could this happen, Chris? You said he was safe. And he's like, if the Federation could be of any assistance guiding your people through this. Alora is like, what are you talking about? Our world is over. It's dead. If the first servant doesn't ascend, Majala will fall out of the sky. Their lakes of acid will destroy. He's like, how can the fate of all this rest on the fate of just one child? And she shuts off. She shuts off the phone. He's like, can somebody tell me how they managed to beam that kid off the ship. And who's Laan? No. Uhura has an idea. Basically, it's that to beam somebody off the Enterprise, you'd have to lock on really close, really fast. So you would need bio patterns. The only people who would have it would have bio patterns. So apparently he had bio patterns of the kid. He had taken his own bio patterns, and yeah. He says, "What aren't you telling us, Gamal? Past the time." That is an interrogation technique. Anyway, yeah. Spock wants the captain. Bring the elder to the brig. He's got a rendezvous on deck 16. The first servant was a rather ingenious child. He figured a way to create a new subspace frequency, and he's like, this is a distress signal from the child. He was never on that combat cruiser. He thinks he was transported to here in Enterprise, and we get one of these laundry baskets or whatever it is. And so for some reason, just sitting in the hallway are laundry baskets or some type of pods. And sure enough, Spock opens it, and there's the kid. There he is. He needs to get to the Ascension, says the kid. He needs to be there. So Pike is like, okay, open Majalis and let her know that I got the package, I guess. So the kid is there, facing the crowd. Everybody's cheering for him. This is a second fountain, another fountain scene. He's so happy. He's so happy. So he's like, as he dedicates himself to Majalis, all the Majalis dedicates themselves to him. And it wouldn't have happened without you, Chris. You saved us. And Pike is starting to realize he might not have saved anybody. He's like, can you tell me how it's possible? How it's possible? Or why this started on a kidnapping plot, started a colony of your people, and now, only now is it first turning, is it first hitting him. And anyway, number one is, of course, going over, realize that not number one, that those people also had a neural dampening device. The purpose is to make him unable to fulfill his duties as number one. So number one is saying, I'm afraid you're stuck with me. By now, it's presumably started, and he's wrong. He realizes he deserves to be in here. How dare he violate the law of his planet? His most deeply held beliefs. She's like, why? For him, for my son, or as Cardassian would say, for all our sons. What does he have to save her from? And now we go to the surface. There's a whole bunch of pink smoke. He wants Alora wants Pike to be a part of this. He's like, a part of what? And he says, Captain Pike, come on, I want you to be there when I ascend. Now I'm thinking, is he going to ascend like they do in Stargate? No, not even like they do in Star Trek Lower Decks. So no, there's no way to talk to the captain when she wants to talk to him. Oh, yeah, they're bringing the kid. They're putting the kid in, and only now is Pike starting to wonder, did he do the right thing? So, with joy and gratitude, he does. Pike gets blocked from walking any further. Alora says it's okay. He can see. So they open it up. He's allowed to walk a little closer, and it's the body of the previous kid, and it's a juvenile. Stop it, he says. Nope, Laura. He chooses it freely. They honor his sacrifice. Long live the first servant. Pike is saying, you can't do this. You can't do this. A couple of headbutts, a couple of punches to the face, and unfortunately, the kid has been taken over by this device. So the girl saves Pike. Yeah, the girl saves Pike. Pike gets up again, and they're like, you can leave. You can leave now. The last thing she wanted to do was hurt Pike. No, you're not a prisoner. The ascension is complete. He may leave. And who else can go? Like, you damn well I'm gonna take that kid away from that thing. He's like, even if you could get in that chamber, severing the connection at this point, only kill him. Pike is saying, why? Why are you doing this? Because serving Majalis is his destiny. It's his reason for being. Without him, Majalis could not be. He's like, you plugged the kid into a machine. You're a fucking animal. Like, what is wrong with you? Why does it have to be him? She's like, I don't know. I don't know why it has to be him. They've hunted for centuries for an alternative. They found nothing. In this way, only one person suffers. They don't pretend anyone else. They don't pretend anyone else doesn't. But he's the only one who suffers. She says, maybe in the future, you'll feel differently. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. Dr. Mbenga's in his office. The other doctor comes by. Dr. Mbenga is talking to the other dude. He's like, I thought he hears that he wants to go to this other planet. And he's like, I thought if he could look at the file, that hypothetical patient, it's not a cure, but it might be your biggest opening move. So Dr. Mbenga explains to this other guy what he needs, and he shows Dr. Mbenga. But that's about it. That's about it. And Captain Pike looks out at the Pacific Northwest. And that's it. He's had it. He is back. He's back. Anyway, this was just a boring episode. But, and it completely ruins the whole point of Star Trek, which was by the 21st, if not 22nd century. Things are better. Things are better. So I'm going to give this a 2, and we'll leave it at that. Hello World. Roberto Frey gives this episode, season 1, episode 6, a 2 out of 10. 2 out of 10.